All right. According to the wall clock at 5:02, Brian Ryder acting as vice chair in the absence of both Dave Bench, the chair, and Alex Robinette as current vice chair, calls the meeting to order. We have no public comment since we have no public signed up, nor is there anybody else in the room other than city staff and the four of us.
Roll call.
Let us do roll call, which I looked over. Jay, would you start?
Jay Van Bavel.
Brian Ryder.
Duke Garwood.
Tom Farrell.
All right, so we have a quorum. On the minutes, I have one question. It has to do with the ability of Jay to leave a meeting and then 2 sections later make a motion.
That Jay,
He can be in 2 places at one time. I didn't realize that
There was a saint that could do that, but I'm no saint.
I would move that Jay, the notation at the end of paragraph 4 that Jay Van Bevel left the meeting at 6:27 be put after the item number 6. Otherwise, we have him leaving and then making motions 2 items later. So,
I'll second
other than that, I would approve the minutes. Ashley, you have a concerned look on your face.
I'm just trying to see it. I'm wondering if they got called out of order, the items.
The items did get called out of order, but the way the minutes are written,
Okay, so we'll fix that.
So we have a motion to accept the minutes.
there's motion and seconded.
Seconding it
In-
as amended.
In favor?
Aye.
All right. We will, other than that, does anyone have any comments on the minutes? I think we just approved them with that one change. Item number 3, discussion and action regarding election of CRCRC vice chair. Alex is the vice chair, and she has made it clear she does not want to serve anymore in that capacity. Dave has, and I think all the rest of you have, over my screaming objections, agreed that I would be the new vice chair. So if somebody will nominate me, please, we'll go through the formality.
I'll make that nomination.
Quickly.
And
Second
I'll-
it.
Third it.
Aye.
I will vote against it, so it has a majority. All right, motion on the floor.
Who seconded that? Was it Duke?
Duke seconded.
I second it.
Okay.
It was actually,
Quickly.
Any further discussion other than that I'm not at all sure what the hell I'm getting myself into, and I probably shouldn't agree to this, but I will. And all in favor, I'd say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right. Residential lighting recommendations. I have sent around to and attached to the agenda is, get my tense right here, the latest draft. I need to say that he's not here, so we can't thank him, but Jerry Fleming, who has expertise in this area, has worked with Tom on this a great deal, and it is similar to but adjusted for residential, but it's similar to the commercial but adjusted for residential.
yes, that's good.
And Tom and I, as a subcommittee, in Duke's absence, and we drafted Jerry to look at this again, and we marked it up a little bit, and we came up with what you have attached to our agenda for the day. And unless someone has some comments, I think we're ready to adopt this and send it on to council and
Well, I
plan it.
do have some questions.
All right.
Let's do the motion
Okay.
All right.
that way.
I
I'll
move
make
it.
a motion to send this to P and Z.
All right, and I will second for the purpose of discussion. Jay?
Questions I had, under exemptions, you have number 8, seasonal decorations with lights in place no longer than 60 days. I think that's long enough. Some people put their Christmas lights up before Thanksgiving.
And some people put their lights up and just leave them all year.
Yeah.
I would say that what we ought to do is say seasonal decorations, with lights in place illuminated no longer than 60 days during the year. Something of that. Did you have another phrasing that you might like, Jay?
I think that would be good.
Let me ask you, just a discussion on that. Even when they have Christmas lights up, is that gonna violate this ordinance? Cause they're not gonna be shielded, that's true. That would be the big part.
Well,
the
that's why it's
problem-
under exemptions.
Yeah.
Well, because under general standards, number 4, you say no light or illumination that flashes, moves,
Yeah,
scrolls,
that's-
scintillates, blinks, flickers.
Yeah.
So what about
Twinkles.
holiday lights?
Yeah.
Can they twinkle and?
They're gonna twinkle because that's what they're designed to do on the lights. So, you know, I'm okay with that change. You know, the whole purpose of that is just not to let that get overboard. So, if we just put illuminate.
All right, but then Jay also calls our attention to the fact that if we are having twinkling Christmas lights, we also need to modify D4. And I would say that what we ought to do is put at the end of the first sentence of D4, other than lights,
Say low voltage holiday lighting?
well, I would say other than light, let me throw something out and to be shot at. Other than lights permitted under item 8 above for the limited period allowed in C8. Okay, now, all right, that is to be shot at and discussed. Does that solve, does that allow 60 days worth of flashing illuminated lights? You wanna add the low voltage in there? I would not object to that at all.
I mean, somebody could have lights that they claim are holiday lights that are, 110 voltage that are flashing.
We're gonna have to define low voltage somewhere, for Nikki to be able to do that. I think that if they are, I hope that we don't have anybody trying to, I guess it might, you're probably right.
So would this?
Oh, we've got lawyers in this community. They'll be trying to find a loophole and use it. Tom, come on, you know that.
And does number 4 eliminate, some people put these things that just lights your whole house as a disc that
Yeah.
it scrolls and rotates. Is that gonna be allowed?
I think it would be a life, yeah, it'd be allowed under 8C or C8.
Okay.
Now, how do we, to get back to your point, okay, so somebody, so Brian Ryder decides to have a searchlight, that's got the Batman signal up in the sky.
Or it's
Uh,
red
No,
and
no,
green?
it would be Santa Claus on a sled. Come
Santa
on.
Claus on the sled, that's shining to all the hills around.
Well, that's why I would add, okay, I'll amend my own proposal, to say at the end of the first sentence in D4, other than low voltage lights permitted under item C8 above for the limited period allowed under C8.
I think that's,
Is that,
I think I'd be right
That-
with that.
yeah.
the bat signal is not a low voltage signal.
And let the attorneys,
Figure out low voltage.
figure out low voltage.
Okay.
Actually, it's going to P&Z and Jerry's in P&Z, so
He can-
I think he will be able to determine
shoot
what
it
that
out.
is.
All right, did you get that?
So you guys amended that motion, to change, to read, low voltage lights?
Other than low voltage lights permitted under
Number 8.
C8 above for the limited period allowed in C8. And then in paragraph C8, seasonal decorations with lights in place illuminated no longer than 60 days.
We'll look back.
Yeah, we have that recorded.
Yeah.
Got that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
With those modifications,
I've got other
And
questions.
You have another one?
Yeah.
Okay. Fire away.
On, I don't know what number this is, D, under D, general standards, D3, exterior lighting may not exceed 0.25 foot candle across the source property line. A lot of people are putting in these, I call them Victorian lights that have a pseudo gas light, and they're not shielded, and they kind of flicker, but they're very low lumens, I think. But is there, does this exclude?
We
that
asked
from
Jerry
doing that?
if there is a simple handheld device that will allow somebody to walk the property line and measure that,
Okay.
measure this number. I don't know how bright that is, Jay.
I can tell you it's incredible. If you get to your property line and you can still read something from a light, that's too bright. Other than that,
Okay.
it's not.
So they're not a problem as far as the lumens, but they're not shielded, cause you're supposed to
And-
see the little flame
Sure.
there, you know, so.
My neighbor's got it.
They'll
How-
be caught, anything new would be caught by D4, because that flickers.
Well, I'm saying that, don't we want to allow people to do that? I mean, they're pretty, it's not my taste, but a lot of people like them. They're low voltage, they're atmospheric, you know?
Yeah.
Looks like you got a little gas light on the outside of your house, you know?
Which is better than having natural gas lights.
Yes. Is there any way we can write this so that those would be allowed?
We would have to put that probably under C exemptions. I'm certainly not opposed to what you're talking about. How do we describe those fixtures?
They'd be decorative lights of very low volt that
That mimic natural gas.
I call them pseudo gas lights.
Light fixtures.
That's probably not architecturally correct.
Probably it's good. Fake.
Fake gas lights.
I think the wording was right where it said pseudo gas lights that mimic natural gas lighting.
Flame effect lights.
All right.
Flame effect.
Flame effect lights.
There you go.
Okay, flame effect lights, that sounds good.
You get a lot of input, Brian.
All right, I would respond to Jay's question by adding a C10, which would say, we're now in exemptions in C10, decorative lights meeting the standard of D3, which is the 25-foot candle low light standard, which mimic natural gas flickering lights.
That's a very good deal. I would accept that amendment.
You could put in unshielded because that's
Well,
the real exception, is that they're not gonna be shielded.
you want to say decorative lights?
Unshielded decorative lights that mimic.
I'll accept that too.
Okay, unshielded decorative lights meeting standard of D3, which mimic natural gas flickering lights. Okay, group? Got it? Okay.
Yes, we're all good.
Then,
Is that a motion or is that just a?
Not yet, we got one more, we're gonna do,
Altogether.
altogether. This is just a question for my clarification on, D6, private walkway light fixtures shall not exceed 385 lumens each. How bright is that? I mean,
it's not very bright. It's-
Are these the,
Bollard light.
Yeah,
bollard lights?
and the whole purpose of that is they can't be shielded, because they're gonna be going up from the ground. But they're gonna,
well, like I have them and they shine down
Shine
on
down.
the sidewalk.
So
Yeah.
So you can't see the bulb.
so
But
they are
shielded.
shielded.
Yeah, but they are pretty bright, and I just wonder how bright is that?
Mine, which I currently don't have bulbs in them.
It has to be pretty daggone bright to be able to make
Yeah.
that. These are probably even,
3 or
not
4
making-
levels
Okay.
of plastic directing the light down,
Yeah.
and I use them on my
not shielded, and they're just designed to illuminate the stairs.
The stairs,
And that's it.
so that somebody doesn't trip.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it doesn't go beyond my property line, but, it's not shielded. And our lot slopes towards the street, so even if I shielded it, you would see the
Sure.
bulb regardless. Just as a way of clarification, a lot of lights are not gonna meet this criteria that you would go cut on, like a porch light, you cut on, and then you cut off when you come in.
Yeah, I think that's contemplated by, well, number 5, light fixtures, D5, light fixtures on photocells. What does it talk about?
Yeah.
Lighting fixtures, text dots, I don't, okay, I thought I saw something for that.
I don't think we put anything in it. but
I
that's-
think we just have to rely on the 20.25 foot candle.
Yeah, and they shouldn't exceed that anyway.
And where do you measure the 385 lumens from the light fixture, the
That's
walkway
not,
light?
yeah, that's the light itself.
Yeah, that is the bulb.
That's the bulb.
Okay.
And how bright is 385 lumens? I don't know.
Remember Jerry was talking about it, he thought it was about like these, so,
Okay.
Yeah, he gave us some examples.
so they're pretty bright, yeah, we have some examples.
Is there an example in there?
He may have verbally given those, I took some notes on that, but
And under enforcement, you only have one category, and it's a $2,000 penalty. All the other ordinances have it stepwise, and they're $500.
This is up to, not 2,000, just up to. And I think that's
You wanna
actually
say starting
the way-
at and then up to?
Well, how's it, Nikki, it's in the ordinances, it's,
Yeah,
for trees, it's
most of them it's, yes. For trees,
$500
it's different,
per incident.
but- Right, it's usually 500 up to 2,000, and then that's the discretion, I think, given by the court.
But it's also for each day, so technically, if they don't correct it, you can charge them $500 per
For the
day.
tree, yes, but for.
Well, for lights, that's what
Are
we're
we
saying
giving
here.
out the lights too?
It says 2,000 for each day,
They,
yeah.
Up to, they,
You wanna just say a civil penalty of $500 or up to $2,000 for each day? Just
well,
find
from 500 to
flexibility.
200.
For 2,000.
Instead of 2,000, you just wanna scratch 2,000 and put 500?
No, I think the 2,000 is a regulatory, I mean, that's a
500
state.
up to, okay,
Yeah.
500 or up to
And the
2,000.
attorney's incidentally gonna change that anyway, cause they've changed the legislature changed the penalties. It's gonna reflect whatever the legislature
Okay.
did.
It just struck me as it's written as pretty onerous.
Well, the intent of this, so you know, is that it never be used. But, you know,
Is this something behind the scenes to give some impact to maybe somebody from the city and or one of the police officers saying, you've got a light fixture that doesn't comply? And this is an outline for Nikki to deal with at some point in the development process. One more complexity for you, sorry about that.
not a problem.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We had a conversation, and I don't know that anything is in here about when, but at one point, we had a conversation either in our little meeting, Tom, or maybe in a prior meeting here about whether this had to be in the plans and specifications initially submitted to Nikki, and Nikki was saying, no, that comes along later. The plans will just contain information about where the electric outlets for planned lighting in the future will be.
You can, make a requirement that within this lighting, that those notes be placed on plans. So that the plans that we get and we approve at the beginning have those notes, and that's approved. And then towards submit that lighting fixture plan. But those notes will also be kind of like a double,
The notes being,
The notes from the ordinance.
the notes from the ordinance, so you could do some construction notes that all lighting, exterior lighting fixtures will comply to XYZ portion of the code.
okay, but we don't have to specify then that the fixture is gonna be a X manufacturer,
No.
No, but
item
it's
number.
going to comply with that, so that's just another measure.
So the reality is that this gives us a leg of enforcement. Cause I mean, Nikki, you don't really submit you may
Lighting plan?
submit a lighting plan, but you don't submit a lighting fixture
Right,
submittal,
Right.
and you could.
Just cut sheets, right?
It wouldn't be difficult to do that, but
Tom, would you then say enforcement,
I would leave this to how the city
to the
chooses.
city attorney and the city to have
To
to
deal with that.
deal with that concept? Okay, I'm all right with that.
'Cause I
All right,
think
we
that-
have a motion, we have a second, we have some, amendments that I believe have all been accepted. Tom, do you accept all the amendments that
Yes,
we
I do.
discussed as friendly amendments, and I will, as the seconder, accept them as friendly amendments. Do we have any further comment or discussion? Then let's vote. All in favor?
aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, so we will move this then, with these slight amendments to planning and zoning and city council like we have done the, other parts of this. Now, according to our agenda, discussion and next steps for FAR drainage and impervious cover is the item. I have sent to each of you, and I provided to be put into the packet just before the meeting, my own notes from the subcommittee meeting that Tom and I had, just before the 4th of July break, and we asked Nikki to sit in with us, and, Jerry Fleming was there to discuss lighting, so he sat in on this. And what we came to was that with respect to FAR, floor to area ratios, that given what we've done with the, building height and setbacks and the tinting, that it is not, we don't think there is a gain to be made from trying to, in addition, institute a floor to area ratio. The FAR concept, Duke, this is, I'm gonna speak into your area of expertise, but it is, basically says build a small house on a small lot and a big house on a big lot. But given the setbacks that we've got and the tinting that we've got and the height limitations that we've got, and people don't really object to big houses as long as they meet those criteria, is the way I think Rollingwood feels. Now, we had a question 6, can we consider adding FAR? And we got yes 136, no 131, with the comments being ambiguous, basically. So I don't see that we have any demand for an FAR program, and I don't think it forwards our project to throw that gasoline on the fire.
I agree.
Duke, as on your expertise in this area, do you agree that it's overkill to do FAR?
I agree, in light of the fact that we have our drainage ordinance. I mean, I've said this all along, I think our drainage ordinance, under the circumstances,
You're gonna get to explain more about our drainage ordinance in the next item or two here.
But it's,
but in light of our drainage ordinance, it does the best job we can do.
of limiting FAR?
Well, of kind of controlling
The effects.
the effects, yeah.
Yeah, that's,
And you know, again, I know somewhere we had a discussion, and maybe I'm jumping ahead about the drainage ordinance, and maybe we can do things to kind of lighten the impact of it. I mean, look, there it is, you get to use it to your benefit,
You're talking
It's
about the
mo-
lot?
the drainage ordinance,
Oh.
as much as you want, and if you wanna really go to the extreme edges, it's gonna cost you more money. And that's the way it should be, in my opinion. So, again, I know I'm kinda jumping,
No, well,
But-
it is all
but-
interconnected, and,
Yeah.
impervious cover is another concept that I have run across in my world of doing, subdivision development. Jay, I've represented subdivision developers all around the city and the state. And impervious cover works as a water quality as well as a water retarding concept if it is used when you're planning a 200-acre subdivision and you can take the downstream 50 acres and require that to be made into grass and bushes. Then the water that falls on the 200 acres is filtered with some benefit for the quality of the water. It filters out some of the stuff that might come off of people's yards. And it also retains, to some degree, slows down, and the term retains the way I'm using it, the velocity at which that water flows into the creek. But on a single house, on a single lot, it doesn't do you any good.
Well,
Well,
can we,
our
I
ordinance-
thought we were talking about FAR, so,
Well,
And
all of these have to
disconnected.
do with, in my mind, they're kind of interconnected, but you're right, okay, if you wanna okay.
would you, want a motion that the CRCRC will no longer consider FAR in our
I would like to
recommendations?
do that for the purpose of then being able to send that to the city council and say, this is not something that we think that we have either a need to do or the expertise to deal with, and we're not gonna propose one.
and you know, I think in the review, as best we could, of existing development, I mean, we found like there were one or two that really got, so to speak, out of bounds. And that, you know, me personally, if I was gonna describe an FAR, I'd make it a very generous one, so it wouldn't be very penalizing.
It wouldn't be
that-
restrictive.
Yeah.
I would, Brian, let me make a stab here, but I think the FAR and impervious cover or something, both of which I would say that we probably don't have direction to go full with right now as a CRCRC.
Nor do we think it's wise to do so.
No, that's correct.
It would be my feeling,
Yeah.
which
I
is
agree.
why I
Now,
put
the-
them together, Jay, in the same category, as I don't think we have the expertise to do it, nor do I think it's beneficial to do
No,
either one of those.
The drainage, Brian, I would have I would have some different requirements on the drainage.
All right, well, let me try
Let
to,
me ask you a couple questions about impervious cover then, because I'm try to isolate things like FAR, okay, I understand, let's not, let's not do that, but impervious cover, you talked about how it's not beneficial, but isn't impervious cover covered under our drainage ordinance?
It impacts what the drainage, what you have to do. That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we don't, as a city, don't have a direct impervious cover limit on residential homes.
You do with the drainage,
Because,
the
well,
city's drainage manual ordinance
yeah, indirectly through.
indirectly
Yeah, I mean,
limits
essentially,
impervious cover.
And we do have it in commercial.
yeah, but the more residentially, the more impervious coverage you propose, the more intense the drainage requirements are in terms of restrictive, more expensive, more elaborate, whatever you wanna call it.
Jay, I think the bottom line is, the reason we would have impervious cover is to contain the drainage. And if you say, okay, our drainage criteria manual will address that. If you wanna have more impervious cover, you're gonna have more you have to do in the drainage criteria manual,
Okay.
to do that.
Well, given that, I would agree if there was a motion to exclude both FAR and impervious cover in our recommendations, so
All right,
do you,
for
somebody?
clarity, Tom, would you make a motion then that says,
Well, do you wanna, since we've got three items here, the drainage,
let's talk about drainage separately, please.
okay. I'll make that motion that we, that we don't believe the CRCRC has the, direction or the ability to address the FAR or the impervious cover, portions of this, of the ordinance.
Can we say that differently? Like, I mean, hey, to me, we got the knowledge and the insights.
We don't see the
have-
need to
Yeah, we, look,
recommend it.
bottom line is, hey, we don't need it.
Well, I have no problem amending it to that. You're right.
The motion would then be that the CRCRC
Does not recommend.
notify the city council that we do not believe that we need an FAR or an impervious cover provisions to be added to our building code.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
That's what I said,
Oh,
Brian.
and that's what you seconded.
And I second it.
All right. Further discussion? Reserving discussion about drainage. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now, breaking out the discussion about drainage. I sent around the memo that is now in the record about drainage, that we have two different regulatory bodies dealing with drainage, TCEQ and then the city's manual. And other than the questions that Tom raised about whether we should consider if there are tweaks that are needed to make it more user-friendly or cheaper to deal with without changing the beneficial result that we're getting now, we don't think we need to. And this one, look, I don't think we have the expertise to do it. It's an engineering job. And number two, the city has a $2 million project going on drainage right down the street. I don't think we need to mess with it.
Here's
Well,
where, this
again.
is where I think we should probably, the city should do. This is the direction I would suggest to the city. We're having residents spend, six-figure numbers on the drainage criteria manual. And that's okay if we're, but I don't know, and the city doesn't know, are we getting the benefit that we think we're getting out of this ordinance?
Well, that's what the engineers are for. That's why they engineered it on each house.
That's right.
And it's gonna handle the drainage from that house.
But remember, it only handles a very small amount of the drainage that comes across that lot. The first 30 minutes, is that what it is? It's relatively small
Well,
amount.
the filtration part is one, water quality's one, and
Yeah.
the detention's another, but look, well, you guys could come to my house, it's probably, it's hard to separate out, but it's probably $200,000 of stuff,
Yeah.
okay? And it works fantastic. Matter of fact, I told my civil engineer, Rick Thompson, I sent him a picture when all of the weep holes are working perfectly. Excuse my French, but it looked like about 6 guys lining up taking a pee-wee on my neighbor's, property. And I sent it to him and I said,
On the neighbor's property or
Works
onto the
good.
cul-de-sac?
no, it's on his property. I mean, it's putting water on his property at a rate that is less than or equal to as if I'd never built,
Okay.
okay?
That's what it has to
And
be.
I had
Yeah.
this similar situation. I didn't do 6 figures, but high 5 figures. And it was engineered by the same person. And it, as far as I know, it took care of the problem. And I looked at it as part of the cost of coming to Rollingwood
It
and
is.
building a house
Oh,
in
yeah.
Rollingwood.
I
I was
think-
glad to do it.
So, look, okay, so I probably have maybe not the worst, but it's right at that, it's 22 acres above catchment that are
Oh, really?
coming through a little tail end that are coming right across my property. and I'm one lot away from the drainage easement or that dry creek that picks up the water and takes it straight to Town Lake. And, you know, I got 3 detention ponds. Well, 2 of them are, you know, water quality filtration ponds, and the other one's a big detention pond.
I think really what I'm saying, I'm not saying that we
Thank you.
shouldn't have the drainage criteria manual, don't get me wrong. Cause I worked on it and I helped do it, but I think cities should always, after they pass something like this, take a step back and say, gee, is this working?
Is it working, and is it working as efficiently as it can be?
Is it something we need to tweak on it from an engineering standpoint? And the third thing is the city getting the best bang for its bucks for the amount of money that's being spent to do this?
I would add that we have question 20 that was in our survey. It said, should more be done to limit the amount of impervious cover on a building? Well, that goes to impervious cover, and it was 160 to 100 negative. I don't know that we asked one particularly about drainage.
Drainage is,
But,
there were some questions about drainage, and people said that that's high on their list of things they're concerned about.
Is the question that the city could do more on drainage to obviate the need for individual residences
We
to
have a very expensive drainage study done
Mhm.
that we have available if anybody wants to read the damn thing. And basically it was, okay, to fix the drainage in Rolling Wood, I'm gonna try to remember, it's been several years. 15 million, Ashland?
Be a crazy number.
Our IIP,
Yeah,
I wanna say it might be more than that.
okay. Multiple, 18, it was
Maybe
18, I think it was $18 million.
lots of money.
All right, and during that hearing on that, I asked the engineers, so how many houses in Rolling Wood, houses, are actually having drainage problems? Ashley, you help me if you can remember this. I think they said 8. And then I said, okay, of these 8, how many is it getting in their lot as opposed to their house? And that went to half, 4. And of the 4, 2 of those 4 were in a floodplain, which if whatever we do, whatever amount of money we spend, the engineers are not gonna certify that it's not gonna flood. So we had a couple houses that we were having issues with. And I went, you know, for $18 million, why don't we just buy
Yeah,
these
why didn't we
2
buy those
houses
2 houses?
and then get this done? But, you know, we're doing spot deals that will help some of these properties on that. But I don't think there's been a serious proposal to do a bond issue for $18 million to do. And they didn't do the plan on it. So I don't know what the plan would look like, but it would have to be a regional detention.
regional detention, for sure.
Somewhere.
And yeah, and where would we put it?
Well,
We
you'd
need a
have to
place
buy.
put it.
And storm sewers of some
Yeah.
consequence.
Ashley, how much has the city issued in bonds for the drainage project? 2.5, 3?
We've only done, it was 2 million and it was tax notes for 1 million for Nixon Pleasant and 1 for Hubbard Halley. So.
And,
uh,
you know, the current drainage ordinance is a 1-by-1
Yeah.
solution.
Right.
And, you know, again, this is having talked with extensively one of the previous city engineers about, you know, conceptually what we're doing and in detail technically. And, you know, his opinion is, look, the train has already left the station, and given that we're not gonna get it back, this is the best effort we can make to holistically solve the problem. But it's a one-off every time.
I'm not, I think that the city would be well advised to, you know, kind of spend a little bit of money to take a step and look at these and just make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck on that.
On,
All right.
on
I
the
don't- that's true.
individual drainage solutions.
Yeah, I'm not, I'm not advocating for $18 million, cause I thought that was crazy, but I think that we can do this, especially since we're going into a drought cycle. We may not have any rain or flood, you know, regardless. And I can assure you, if we spent 18 million and had that built, then we'd go into a long-term drought, where it would.
Yeah, Murphy's Law assures us of that.
Yeah, so but I think that my recommendation to the city is, and it doesn't matter if it's this or something else, is you kind of take a step back after a while, you've got some history on it, and say, is it working the way we want it to? Is it doing what it's supposed to? Is it can it be tweaked from an engineering standpoint? And finally, is this the best use of the monies that are being spent?
All right, let's turn
That's
that
the
into.
only thing that I would say.
By individual
By
residents.
individual.
Yeah, by individual.
And we can, remember, we can do
residents.
this by saying, and we actually have this provision in our drainage criteria manual. If you happen to be in a regional area, we could say, okay, Jay, you gotta pay $5 a square foot of your impervious cover into a drainage ordinance. The difference is, the legislature jumped out and said, you can do that, but you can only do it if you have a project that's ready to go within immediate, a year,
Couple of years. or
2
something.
years,
Yeah.
and
It was actually the courts that did that rather
courts.
than the ledge.
But we don't have Rollingwood would have a difficult time
Yeah,
doing that.
we don't have a place for a regional detention pond to go that we could have people pay money to get into instead of having to do individuals. That's individual plans per lot. That's what the city of Austin does in various places, by the way. I mean, they have
yeah.
some places, I know they've got one in, up north, I forget the name of it, but basically they make it a park and a soccer field.
No, Circle C's got,
Mhm.
you know, their whole soccer complex is
Yeah.
a detention pond.
Yeah, that is a detention pond.
Yeah.
If it were to rain that much, it would fill the soccer fields, but
Mm-hmm.
without having that kind of land area available, we have to do this lot by lot, and that's what we have.
So Tom, you're recommending not a recommendation, not a change in the ordinance.
Not
but
a
just-
change. I don't know.
Yeah,
Jay,
you know-
this may be the best we can get.
yeah.
And
Hey, and thinking practically how to do that is to take the, you know, the Pleasant, Nixon area, and if there's any empirical data about what's happened before and what's after, because there's been plenty of development recently,
yeah,
you know, Mark Hughes' house, the Robinsons up there, where you all that water's coming down
yeah, even on Ridgewood, Brady, that
Yeah.
water comes all the way down.
from there.
Now, I would add, another provision, that you reminded me of, because the city of Austin area drains into, Nixon, Pleasant. And the city of Austin has they don't have an easement, they just had their drain from the city of Austin properties on Ridgewood and Brady drain into that deal that's in the house next to me. But they don't have an easement. They
Is
just
that-
put a
is that
pipe
city of
there
Austin?
and
And
it
that
dumps it
drains
into Rollingwood.
That's not Westlake.
So you want a
right?
Rollingwood dike?
There's some city of Austin up
I
there.
would have plugged that damn thing if it had been me, but,
Up on Ridgewood, I mean, there's county, city of Austin, Westlake, and Rollingwood
yeah.
come into some somebody wanted a few houses in AISD or something.
Yeah.
All right, let me make a motion so we can get past this one, because
Yep.
I think we're all talking about the same reality here, and that is, that the CRCRC will not make a recommendation for changes to the drainage ordinance. However, the CRCRC recommends that the city employ some engineering effort to verify that the drainage ordinance is working as planned and that it is an efficient expenditure by the individuals whose lots are being impacted by the, having to comply with the rolling wood drainage, that it's an efficient way of getting our drainage dealt with at the best way possible.
And third is the recommendations for any improvements that they make, engineering improvements to the ordinance that might make it work better.
Okay.
Those are the three things.
Were we able to capture something that
It's-
coherent?
It's recorded. We'll grant it. We'll
All
keep-
right.
keep it.
And I will second that.
Okay.
All right. Further discussion? Vote, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None? Okay.
And now's the time to do this, because they're doing you're starting on the budget.
It is. I'm trying to think, I mean, would that be like a large item that you're wanting to put forth?
I don't think it's, I think it's, I'm always underestimate when it comes to a study, but I think that this should be I mean, it's certainly not a six-figure, and I'm thinking it would be a very low five-figure deal. I mean, doesn't take that much to do that, I wouldn't think, but
There ought to be a lot of data that
Yeah.
just gets plugged into a program
Yeah.
to.
so.
It actually is, to me, it's, a good bit of it would be to look at the impact of what we're doing with the $2 million, to see if that changes anything that was in the underlying
Yeah, that would be,
rationale.
those would be, well, we got two projects going, and that would certainly affect everything we're doing, but I still think that's, this should cover it on that. The city, I think, to me, it'd be money well spent, given that people are spending,
100 to 200,000 or some
six
more.
figures or five figures even, and if they're spending that much, we need to say, okay, it's doing what we think we're getting our money's worth. That's all I'm asking. So-
All right, item 6. What is the next regularly scheduled meeting date?
2 weeks from today.
Today is July the 9th, so that would be July the 23rd.
Correct.
Agenda topics for discussion, I don't know of any right now. I think it's, do we as a group have any more agenda items? But Dave will be back tomorrow. By the way, we all have been invited, I don't know what the degree of coercion is, Ashley, to a joint meeting of us, the P and Z, and what, the Board of Adjustment tomorrow?
Yes, it's just a training.
It's
Not quite a meeting, but it's a training.
The training,
You mentioned inducements, you mean like dinner?
No, sadly, there's not dinner. We should have thought about that. No, but yes, it's
There's drinks. I mean, we're gonna have cocktails.
How long?
I would say probably an hour to an hour and a half. It's kind of a joint the role of the P&Z, the BOA, where the CRCRC fits into all of that. So, yes, Dave has created this wonderful.
I
This
have put it
training,
on
so
my calendar
it'll be
to
good.
attend for a while.
And it's at
Yep. 6 o'clock tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
And Bryce Cox from Denton Navarro is putting it on. So
Yeah.
he's great. He knows his stuff. So
That sounds very worthwhile.
He's entertaining.
that too.
You are highly encouraged.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
There will not be beatings of members of the CRCRC who do not attend.
I want to ask one clarification. The motion on the lighting, the motion was to present it to P and Z, and then when
Yeah.
you summarized the motion, you said P and Z and City Council.
Yeah, my intent was to send it through the same path that we have sent the building height recommendation
That
and
would
the
be
tree
P&G
recommendation.
and council.
Our work product along the same path.
I don't have a problem if it
Okay,
goes
I
to
just
both,
wanted to
but
make
I will tell you, I really think it's important that the city follow the rules about sending it to P and Z first.
And we don't really know what those rules are.
I think also from our perspective, to avoid confusion, I think it would help if it went to one first, if it went to P and Z and then council, as opposed to going to council, and then P and Z meets 2 weeks later, and council wants to know if P and Z's already looked at it. And so I think it would be very helpful if we tried to keep one first and then the other. Now, in the end, before any of these actual changes are made, when the code language is
Yeah,
written,
there's gotta be
that's
a
gonna
code,
have
a
to
code
go.
writing
Right.
session with the lawyers.
But that's
and
gonna
stuff.
have to go to P and Z.
And
So before
height
it actually
and
changes.
trees went through the P and Z already. But
They
the-
went before.
But I don't
yeah.
think the lighting has been.
It has not.
So
No.
I would,
Mm-hmm.
I would say it should go to the P and Z,
I
the
do too.
lighting one
Brian,
first.
do you, if Dave is commissioner, head of P and Z wants to send it to, council, he can do that
Mhm.
individually
Yeah,
without us.
that's his problem.
But I think, you know, it just gets down to a local governance deal. We've asked P and Z is supposed to be an advisory commission. And if you send it to the council first, and they go, well, here's what we think,
Don't send it to P and Z.
and then they send that to P and Z first, then you're not gonna get P and Z's open opinion I mean, that's just my thought.
Yep.
I would rather hear what they have to say before I make up my mind on if I were in the council position. So,
Totally good with that. I mean,
anyway,
So-
Jay, that's good catch.
I don't think we need to,
safer than sorry.
we're gonna let Dave deal with the niceties of all that when he gets back
Good.
tomorrow. He'll be here tomorrow for our
Training.
to the training session. We can talk to him about what he plans to do with this, our work product here.
So I make a motion that we adjourn.
I would welcome that motion. Second by Mr. Farrell. Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Will be,
You know,
will be
I just
taken
wanna
out back
make,
and
since
woodshedded.
we're off record, I just wanna make one point in